Welcome back to Sunday Vibes, one and all. It's approaching the end of the season. Look who's joined me. It's Doogie and it's Mikey McCubbin. Now, Mikey, this weekend coming, or happened yesterday.
Last night, yeah. We were all there.
Played your first gig.
We
were all been there.
You're a rock star.
How are you feeling about it, Mr. Rockstar?
I'm a little bit nervous, mainly very excited. Did have a dream last night that I went on stage and absolutely messed up. So yeah.
Won't happen, mate.
It won't happen.
You've got that out of the way.
I think the nervous, anxiety dreams I think are a good sign in the build up to stuff.
Absolutely.
So yeah. Hopefully,
and
it was good.
If you haven't already streamed Mikey's new track by his band Sedilia, Sedilia. Correct?
Yeah.
Make sure you go and stream that on Spotify right now.
Description.
Yeah, we will put it in the description. Yeah. Why not? Absolutely. Dukes, how are you, mate?
I'm good, thank you. I feel like you guys owe me a little thank you, really, for Amad Diallo.
Yeah.
Developing him, getting him all ready for the Premier League. You guys then injure him, and then he pops up last night with a crucial goal.
Yeah,
absolutely
great goal.
Yeah, I mean, it means very little for our season, but ultimately,
great for him.
Great for him. Great for him,
him,
and could have been a big moment for him. It feels like in his Manchester United.
Great
future.
performance good performance against Arsenal as well. Don't know if anyone performed like great, but like he looks really good. I think like
should have got more minutes.
At least definitely should have got more minutes earlier on. Like how Anthony was keeping out the team, like that's a whole other podcast, isn't it? Yeah, it feels like Amad and Garnacho. I think they have to start the FA Cup final. To be honest, I think they kind of do. Like,
yeah, I think there's definitely arguments made. It would be a young front three, though, wouldn't it? 19,
it would
20.
Be. Like you maybe want the experience of Rashford there, but like
mainly behind. It is the young players that give United fans, I imagine, some hope going into the summer.
Which is never a good sign. But anyway, as you can see from the title of today's video, we're giving out our end of season awards. We do this every single season pretty much, don't we? We're going to be kicking off with Player of the Year. These are all Premier League related awards. Player of the Year. There's only one answer for me here.
Well, I actually don't think there is only one answer, but I think we might all have the same one. I went with Ollie Watkins.
No.
I went Ollie Watkins as well.
Wow.
Did you go for Foden?
No.
Oh.
Who did you go for?
I went Rodri.
Oh, yeah, true.
I think it's absolutely Rodri.
Yeah.
I think he's clear and away the best player in the league, to be honest with you. I think Foden's had an exceptional season, don't get me wrong. He's definitely the most aesthetically pleasing player to watch in the league, and his output has jumped to new highs this season. I think Ødegaard as well, and similar sort of player, that sort of aesthetic feel. I've heard his name mentioned in the realms of winning Player of the Year, but none of these players have been as good as Rodri. Rodri has now gone unbeaten for 73 games. Man City have lost 4 games this season. He's not played in any of those games. He is clearly...
Well, he played in the Real Madrid one, but
doesn't even count as a loss. Doesn't even count as a loss. That goes on as a technicality as a draw. But I just think that he is the one immovable object in that Man City side. Everybody else can be interchanged, can be swapped out. Even as good as he's been this season, Phil Foden could be interchanged for another player, be it Kevin De Bruyne playing in the 10 and Bernardo Silva playing out wide. Phil Foden takes a break on the bench. You cannot do it with Rodri and the Man City side. Yeah. They are the best team in the world, the best team in the league yet again. He's their best player. He has a ridiculous amount of goal contributions for a player playing as deep as he has this season. He's added plenty of shot creating actions to his game I didn't think was going to be possible, given that he was basically a player that received it from the first line and drove the ball forward, be it from a pass or just keeping it simple, ticking over. Now he's like this all-action, box-to-box, scores massive goals, never loses a game. He's still only 28, I think.
Yeah,
we're talking about a player that's definitely going to be one of the greatest Premier League midfielders of all time. And I just don't think he's put a single foot wrong this season. He's the best player in the best team.
Yeah, I think that's... I think it's a pretty good argument. I think if I was going to go for a City player, it would be Rodri. But I just think on an individual season basis, it's really hard to choose. But I think
22 goal involvements from this season from defensive midfield.
Not in the league, not in the Premier League.
In all competitions.
In all competitions, that is really
16
impressive.
in the league.
Same as Ødegaard.
Yeah, that is mad. 9
goals, 7 goals, 9 assists in the league.
It's really impressive.
But speaking of goal involvements, though, only Mbappe and Kane have more than Ollie Watkins.
Cole Palmer does now after last night.
Does he have more? Does he have more than Ollie Watkins after last night?
Level. They're all level.
Well, that's annoying. But nevertheless,
no one has
nevertheless, like, I think Ollie Watkins you talk about taking players out of a team. Aston Villa do not finish anywhere near where they have without Ollie Watkins. I think he's still got the joint most assists in Europe as well. His consistency actually since arriving at Villa has been pretty extraordinary. Had so much kind of unnecessary criticism, I think, during the Steven Gerrard days, where he was being, not really being used correctly, and people were even questioning whether he was a Premier League level striker, let alone, arguably the best. I think he has been the most consistent centre forward in the league this year. I know Haaland has picked up recently, but I think in terms of his all-round play, and that's not to say that Haaland doesn't have good all-round play. I don't sit in that camp, but I think all-round Ollie Watkins has been the best centre forward this season. I think he's a shoo-in for the Euros, which obviously is getting announced in 2 or 3 days' time. He's just held that attack together, and given that he's had a bit of a revolving cast around him as well this season, like he's played in a front two with like Yuri Tielemans at points, played in a front two with Moussa Diaby. I know an unconventional front two, both of those, but he's had kind of Diaby in and out of the side. Leon Bailey's been there. John McGinn's been playing on the left. Like, it's been a bit of a, he's had to kind of deal with Unai Emery switching things up quite a lot throughout the season. And Unai Emery has obviously had a brilliant season as a manager, brilliant tenure so far at Villa. But Ollie Watkins has really been the constant. Villa have struggled defensively a lot recently, and yet they've secured Champions League football. So I think, that's why I would give it to Watkins.
I think he's been amazing. He's been amazing, but I think if you're going to be a striker winning the Player of the Year award, I think you've got to be scoring 25 plus goals. I think Ollie Watkins has been amazing. He's been remarkable. Don't get me wrong, he has been remarkable. Like, such a good season. But I just don't think you can win the Player of the Year award on 18 goals.
19 goals. Non-penalty goals.
Yeah,
he hasn't scored a single penalty.
It's impressive.
If you took penalties, he would probably be on 25.
Yeah.
And he's the top assist provider in the entirety of Europe, level with Grimaldo and Alex Baina of Villarreal.
He's been unreal. But
the fact that, John Duran's played, I think, less than 400 minutes.
But he's not the best player in the league.
But it's not about who's the best player in the league. It's about who's had the better season. And actually,
Rodri is definitely had a better season.
Rodri wasn't even nominated for Premier League.
Yeah, that's a disgrace.
I totally agree. I totally agree. He would be
nominated
in my
for
top
PFA,
three
surely,
for decision about this. But I'm kind of with Mikey. I think the most remarkable story as it stands, and we've got the final day ahead at the moment, is Villa getting fourth. And Watkins has been central to that.
I think there's an argument to be made that Rodri is the only player. This is a risk saying this. The only player in the world that is the best in his position in the Premier League.
Yeah,
I think you could say Alisson maybe, and there's definitely arguments to be made for the back two at Arsenal.
It's the biggest
and Van
gap
Dijk
between
now.
the second.
Yeah, but
definitely.
that 100% certainty that he's the best defensive midfielder in the world.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't think you maybe could say that's Salah potentially, but with the emergence of Rodrigo, certainly Harry Kane's the best striker. Mbappe, the best left winger in that midfield role. 100% he's head and shoulders above anybody else.
There is also an argument, and it is not an argument I would make. It's not my argument, but if Rodri doesn't get suspended for those games,
that's a walk in the park, the league.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So all I'm saying is, should he have been there? A suspension is unnecessary. You do not need to make that mistake. And look, City have dominated this league this year, or got it back into domination zone, really, because of Rodri's performances. So it's a harsh argument to make. But Watkins, only Dom Solanke out of all forwards in the Premier League has played more minutes than him. He has provided the joint most goal contributions, top assists in Europe. He's been there every single game, dragging a Villa side that no one had finishing fourth to fourth.
Yeah, he's amazing. Know that. So those are our suggestions for
I think you have to vote in the
you're going to have to let us know in the comments below. Player of the year.
We'll stick a pinned comment with
young player of the year.
I think this is very easy.
Yeah, this has to be
Cole Palmer.
It's 100%. 32 goal involvements in all competitions. I think Mbappe has 34 this season.
Again, I'm having a go at the Premier League here, but why is Phil Foden and Haaland and Isak being nominated for this award again?
Well, no, Phil Foden. Oh, it's for the young player. Yeah, sorry, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Foden's won it twice already.
Totally. Yeah.
It's a joke.
Yeah,
he's won 5 Premier League titles.
This has to be changed. It has to be shifted to a Rookie of the Year, a player making their breakthrough campaign.
Under 22 at the start of the season.
Is Cole Palmer? Has Cole Palmer now turned 22? Or has he 21?
Still 21.
Is he still 21?
Off the top of my head.
When I was looking through 21-year-olds for this, he wasn't in there.
24 matches since the turn of the year.
absolutely remarkable. He didn't get his first goal contribution until middle of October, and then he's just been on an absolute tear ever since. I think the longest streak he's gone in the league without providing a goal or assist is 3 games, and that's happened
There
once.
was actually some good debate being had at the pub last night when we were watching the game. Adam Templeman, who you guys might remember, long-term viewers of the channel probably will remember, is claiming he initiated the Cold Palmer nickname.
Oh, come on.
Before
Well,
Cole Palmer did himself?
He has potentially got legitimacy to the claim. On September the 10th...
It's not something to be proud of.
September the 10th, he posted... He now is involved in Arsenal and England social media, and he posted when he scored for England under-21s, Cold Palmer was the caption.
Wow.
Cole Palmer then commented on that with the frost emoji, and I think 2 weeks after did the Cole Palmer
But
celebration.
it's Morgan Rogers' celebration, isn't it?
Yes, but he wasn't called. He
But
wasn't still
yeah.
called Cold
I get the
Palmer.
celebration, but the Cold Palmer nickname.
Yeah.
I don't know
Okay,
whether it's true or not.
interested,
Let
yeah.
me
It's a
know if
great
you
claim.
know.
It's
Let
a
me know if you know a different reason he's called Cole
That's an
Palmer.
amazing bit of like.
I mean,
Football Daily trivia
Adam
for 5 years'
Adam
time.
Templeman
Claiming
is a social media god. So like, I'm not, like he does have it in him.
He's
to
claiming
start
it.
saying
He's
that.
claiming it.
That
And I
is
respect that
claiming
totally.
Clickbait cling.
But have you got something other than Cole?
To be honest, Cole Palmer I was a bit pushed for time doing these. I was a little bit rushed, and for some reason, when I did a quick search of like 20 players 21 and under in the Premier League, Cole Palmer just didn't come up, which was weird. So I was choosing between Garnacho and Pape Sarr. I think I was going to go for Pape Sarr. I do think I think I know. Like, blame who scored. They don't think that Cole Palmer's 21 years old.
Can I just say as well that surely a doggy.
As long as he gets in there as well. But I think
Doggy's been the best left back in the league this season.
I disagree,
it's
but
between
he's
him
up
and
there.
Anthony Robinson, isn't it? But I think
Vardy maybe.
Pape Sarr's had a remarkable year. He's been a real mainstay in that Tottenham midfield when others have dropped off as well. He was especially in the first half of the season, I thought he was really pretty amazing. I think I can make the case in some ways. Obviously, Cole Palmer's sheer output is pretty hard to argue with. It is an oversight. I would have.
And the
put him in.
quality of his performances.
Quality
It's not just output.
Quality of his
Crazy.
performances as well. But I think it's easier to be a young forward and thrive in the Premier League, especially when you've come up through the Manchester City academy.
To that level,
Than it is to be a midfielder at that age.
To be a workhorse at Spurs or the best player in a really poor team for most of the season.
To be the best midfielder at Spurs, I think that's pretty good.
I love
achievement.
Sarr. I think he's had a great year, but
he's not Palmer.
He's more than just a workhorse.
Palmer's
He's a
beats.
very good technical box-to-box midfielder. I think he's been brilliant.
I think
is maybe a bit harsh.
Yeah.
I think
I
there's
think
a big
very
hole
harsh.
when he's not in that Tottenham team.
Yeah.
I think they look.
I agree, but he can't be young player of the
significantly
year.
worse. No,
I'm not arguing that, but what I'm arguing is that
he's in the contention.
I think he's had a much harder job than Cole Palmer has. I would say.
Fair.
Yeah,
I
I'm
don't.
not
I just
sure.
don't.
I
agree
don't-
with that.
We talk about Chelsea being
The spotlight
really bad this year,
blazes
but
a lot hotter, bro.
sorry.
The spotlight blazes a lot hotter.
Oh, for sure. Maybe there's more pressure in that sense, but I just think Chelsea, attacking wise, have been one of the best teams in the league this
Because
season.
of Palmer, though.
Partly because of Palmer. I think
In a
there's
large part.
also a lot to do with the system that they play. And Nicholas Jackson's all-round player has been very, very good as well. You could look at a number of aspects there. Cole Palmer has obviously been their outstanding player. I'm not saying that. I'm just
Sounds like you're saying that he shouldn't win the Young Player of the Year award.
You're saying he's
kind
just frosty Palmer.
Should
He's
we-
not cold at all.
he is. Well, he's lukewarm Palmer. Stole a celebration
From Adam Templeman.
I do like saying Cole Palmer and doing the celebration, but only in jest. So
Manager
he's
of
not
the
very
year?
good. Unai Emery, think it
Yeah.
has to be, doesn't it?
3 out of 3.
Has to be.
Absolutely, 100%.
Although, if Pep does win a double, he'll become the first ever manager to win back-to-back doubles.
And the first ever manager to go 4 in a row.
Yeah.
And if they win on the Saturday, it'll be 4 times over 90 points in the last 7 years.
yeah.
Fergie,
Yeah.
I think, did it 3 times.
It is remarkable, and I do think he gets sort of unfairly forgotten.
I
about
do it.
this.
I do it as well.
There was
yeah,
I don't know if this is true, but I saw somebody put on Twitter that he's only ever won one Manager of the Month award
Nah, surely not.
in the Premier League.
in the Premier League.
That's got to be a.
Please
that's
do
surely
let
not
me know
true.
if that's incorrect.
That's
but
surely not true. But mate, who knows? I
mean,
just
it's
find,
the sort
I feel like Manager of the Month awards are
madness
generally
that-
given to the managers who have won the most points and have. I feel like they're a lot more,
I'm pretty
know.
sure
a lot
Postecoglou
more
went
mechanical.
past Mourinho in his first 3 months of this
Yeah.
season. Like the manager of the year, isn't the manager of the month. Sorry, it's not always.
It's not
a
what
bit
you
of a
think.
weird
Like,
one.
I think Jose's won 2 Manager of the Month awards or
And
something
Postecoglou
in his
maybe won in his
entire
first
Premier
3.
League era.
Yeah, but Jose but the amount of like 10 game, 11 game winning runs that Pep has managed in the Prem, I just find it really hard to believe.
We'll
Like,
check
I
that. We'll
really-
fact check
yeah.
that
check it out.
afterwards. But it's clearly Unai Emery, isn't it? Do you want to talk about him any more, or do you want to move on to Unsung?
One thing that I don't think people have touched on is actually that he has been thrown a bit of difficulty this year as well. Like
Definitely.
Mings playing 31 minutes. Camera being injured from February time.
Yep.
Moreno, who was superb in the back end of last season, being injured for much of the year.
And falling
It's
out
not
of form.
all been Jacob Ramsey's drop off in form and injury issues as well. It's not all been plain sailing. What I'd really like them to do next year is, it's great that they're back in the Champions League, but I think they've got a very legitimate shout at domestic cup, and they actually haven't got past the 4th round in any domestic competition since 2020. And that feels like get a trophy on, keep the projection going, because Villa have an easy, good enough squad to get into the latter stages of the Carabao Cup and FA Cup. And of course, it comes down to draw, but I'd really like to see them
Villa
give that
Park's
a
going
good
to
go.
be rocking, mate, in the
Oh, it'll be
Champions
electric.
League.
Yeah.
First time since '96, isn't it? It's going to be absolutely electric there. Given that it is one of the few clubs.
96. Were they in it in 96?
I think
finished
so.
4th, yeah.
It was their
But
last.
that was before Fourth got a Champions League place.
their
I'm pretty
last
sure.
Champions League appearance was 1996. Yeah.
Really? I didn't even know that. I thought it was only the champions who got in then.
Yeah, and
fair.
I think it's just the 7th time a Big Six side have qualified, a non-Big Six side have qualified for the Champions League in the Premier League era. So, this is a remarkable achievement, just 7 times since 1990, basically.
Quite a few in the
Like,
lot. Newcastle,
35 years,
Leicester,
man. Yeah.
Everton did it once.
Everton, yeah.
Yeah, so it is a massive, massive achievement for Unai Emery. I think the recruitment has to be praised a little bit above him and around him as well. Some of the signings have just been really, really smart, haven't they? The free transfer pickups of Boubacar Kamara and Yuri Tielemans over the last couple of years, despite the fact he was injured and has now played a season. Diego Carlos looks like a really smart addition, as does Pau Torres.
Although that mess against Liverpool, I know it's only one
Moussa
miss,
Diaby and people like that,
Yeah,
it goes to show, there's this, that there's always chat of when a club sells their best player for big money, and it's always like, oh, you're never gonna, the rebuild's always going to, it's not gonna work, it's too big a task. Like Villa have proved a little bit like Tottenham did actually after Pochettino came in 10 years ago, that you can sell your best player and it can be the team can become better. Like Villa are so much better than they were with Jack Grealish in the side. They sold him when he was, they didn't sell him when he was like super young. They got max value for him. I don't think Grealish would his value would ever have gone higher. It probably would have decreased, in fact, because Man City probably would only have hung around for him for 1 year. You could argue maybe Man United would have overspent on him a year later, but and look at Grealish now, struggling to get into the Man City team, and Villa are absolutely flying. I think you have to give big props to them. But Unai Emery overall, it has to go to Emery
They've
as well.
spent 150 days in the top 4 this season.
So impressive. And
given that they were in relegation trouble when he came in last year.
Probably the best
3 points
performance I can remember against Pep's Man City as well in December. They absolutely blitzed them.
Did the double over Arsenal.
Yeah.
It was so impressive. The only thing, I think, with Manager of the Year, you're like, who got closest to a perfect season? And as it stands right now, I think Unai Emery, mainly because Pep's expectations are so much higher than anyone's have ever really been in the Premier League. But I do just wish that they got through that Conference League semi-final. I know it's not relative to this, but that is such an opportunity as well.
Yeah.
To lose that heavily.
Looked leggy
What was
though,
it,
didn't
6-2 against Olympiacos?
It looked really,
That's
really
a
leggy.
shocker.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Unsung Hero is our next category.
It's going to be interesting.
gonna
I
get a
think.
bit
It's
more
probably going to
interesting.
get where it starts to get more interesting. I've
Who
gone
did you
for
go for?
Leon Bailey.
Ooh,
nice.
okay.
Yeah. I think he's just had a remarkable season. 19 Premier League goal involvements in 2,000 minutes. I think his non-penalty expected goals and assists are at 0.9 this season, which is absolutely frightening given last season when he first arrived from Leverkusen. He actually arrived from at Villa in 2021, I think, didn't he? And it didn't really it was a bit of a start-stop season, wasn't it? I think 8 goal involvements, something like that, and he never really got going. This season, it's almost like the arrival of Moussa Diaby has been like, I better
kick up the lump.
I need to really step up here. I think it's 22 goal involvements in all competitions. He has just been totally transformed under Unai Emery. for me, Villa's second best forward, despite the fact they've got Moussa Diaby on the books now. He's just more influential than Diaby, and he's kept
100%.
Diaby out of the team for large swathes of the season. And I think a lot of us going into this season were saying Diaby might be the signing of the season. He might change how Villa play, when it's actually been Leon Bailey who's been supporting Ollie Watkins all of this time.
Yeah.
I just think he's been absolutely amazing in a team that have been stunning, like so good. His improvement just can't be talked about enough. I think he's been great.
Nice.
Yeah, he has been really good. I think you could mention, I know like he always gets talked about in like underrated conversations, but you could talk about John McGinn, I think, in this Villa team still, as someone who just has been consistently brilliant for them this year. I've gone for a Bournemouth player. Just because I think Bournemouth have rightly received a lot of plaudits, has Araola. Solanke's obviously had a standout year, been absolutely sensational. Someone like Senesi at the back, Zabani, I think they've got their props as well. But I think the transformation of Ryan Christie into a deep-lying midfielder has been remarkable for them. Given that they signed Tyler Adams last summer, that was seen as a really positive signing for Bournemouth. One of a number of really astute signings that they've made over the last few years. But obviously, has he even played a Premier League game yet, or did he get injured in the first game? He's not. He's been out since August.
Yeah, I think he arrived injured.
Yeah, so like that was obviously a major blow for Araola. But his alternative, his solution to the problem was to convert Ryan Christie, who's played pretty much his entire career either at attacking midfield at Celtic or
even on the wing,
on the wing at Bournemouth, to convert him into a central midfielder. He still does have like decent attacking output. His dribble numbers are really good, but his defensive output has gone up massively. I think for the kind of middle third of the season, weirdly enough, he was making more tackles and interceptions in the middle third of the pitch than anyone else in the league. Like, he's just transformed into this amazing all-round midfielder, and now it feels like even when Tyler Adams comes back that he's going to face a bit of a struggle to get back into that Bournemouth team, which is pretty mad given that Ryan Christie's 29 years old. This is only his second Premier League season. I think he's had an absolutely incredible year, and a sign that you can teach old dogs new tricks.
Nice.
Let's get that in there. Not that he's old, 29 isn't old, but
definitely not.
Younger than us.
I think it's a good shout. Who have you gone for?
I went with Jordan Pickford.
Okay.
I feel like everyone always just says the same thing, that he's great for England but not great for Everton. I just think that's a myth. I think the last few years he's been exceptional for Everton.
He's made a lot of people's teams of the season.
Yeah.
I feel like he has got props.
Yeah. Is he an unsung hero? I seen him also listed in teams
I never
of the
hear
season.
him in discussions for top 6, top 7 goalkeepers in the league. I think this year he's been brilliant. I think only Andre Onana can top him in terms of save percentage in the league.
Andre.
He was actually a little bit of a shout for this, by the way.
He's made too many errors for this. Too many errors. But it hasn't been a disaster. Only David Raya kept more clean sheets. Then Pickford, I think they're 10th for shots against per game. So look, he's not facing as much traffic as some other goalkeepers, but they've actually got the 4th best defence in the league, Everton. And finished way clear of relegation despite all the issues with points deductions and appeals, etc. It was a real distraction of a season for them. And Pickford, I think, behind Branthwaite and Tarkowski, who I thought were both brilliant as well, is just, he's just worth a shout. He was in our team of the season, to be fair.
I have to say, I was going to have Deitch in here as unsung hero. What he's been able to do with that side. We talk about, Bournemouth and what a job Iraola's done. I'm sure we're going to mention him soon. They've got identical records, Everton and Bournemouth, this season in terms of wins, draws and losses across the campaign. Like, Deitch has had to work under much more trying circumstances with points deductions and all of the noise that's gone on in the background of Everton.
Really unbalanced
squad
as well.
Really close to putting Deitch as unsung hero. I think he's a contender for manager of the year if Unai Emery wasn't just streets ahead.
I agree. We've got a spicy one next.
Yeah, most overrated.
Yeah. Okay.
Which I always think is a pretty horrible one.
He wants to start. He wants to put their neck out on this one.
I'll go for it. I went with Luis Diaz of Liverpool.
Really?
I think he's an exceptional player, but I don't think his output's good enough. I think 13 goal contributions, given you played the second most minutes.
This is most
in Liverpool's
overrated
squad.
season.
Most overrated season. Yeah. I don't think he's got the flack he probably deserves. Look, someone like Evan Ferguson has been through it this year, but I didn't really want to pick on the 18-year-old, 19-year-old. Luis Diaz obviously went through a really tough time with his dad. Full empathy for that, but I don't think his form has been good enough. He's not been clinical enough in big moments. You know, I think only Nicholas Jackson and Darwin Nunez and Dominic Calvert-Lewin have underperformed their expected goals by more. There are multiple games where Luis Diaz has done everything but put the ball in the net. And sometimes you just to get over the line in a title race, like Liverpool have dropped off. Like they've got the best attack by expected goals, but they haven't actually scored the most goals. And their defence isn't good enough to compensate for that. So I think he's got to take his fair share of flack.
Yeah, but I think you can spread that across. I think you can spread that across the Liverpool
Yeah, I mean
forward
Darwin's
line.
missed a lot of chances. Even Mo Salah's missed a lot of chances in the second half of the season.
I feel like they are more criticised. Like he's gone under the radar.
Okay, Mikey.
Yeah. I've really this is definitely one that could get me a lot of hate in the comments and in general, especially just given the recent form. I think I'm ready for sticking my neck out here. I think people might be getting a little bit ahead of themselves with what Ollie Glasner's done at Crystal Palace.
You're not saying Ollie Glasner is overrated.
I'm saying that I think that I think Palace's recent form has almost as much to do with just player availability and who they have in that side.
But what are people saying?
It's a remarkable
people are saying that Palace are going to finish top 10 next year. I think people are getting a bit ahead of themselves.
They could sneak 10th, maybe.
Maybe. What, without Elise?
It's a pretty remarkable
without
system, though.
Without Doogie Friedman.
Moving to a back four, Nathaniel Klein playing as a right-sided centre back.
I'm not saying he's a bad manager. Like he's like, okay, what he's done with Mateta has been brilliant. What he's done with the back
Elise.
three, especially with Klein, has been brilliant. But Elise's performances have like his overall play has got better slightly. Eze hasn't improved all that much.
Well, that's because he was already great.
Yeah, but Elise was already great. Elise was already one of the best wingers in the league.
Well, I think with this one, it depends what you've heard. I think maybe you've heard like Palace for Europe next year. I just haven't heard that. I think people have just been like, great turnaround.
But you could say that the same with Luis Diaz. You like, no one's saying that Luis Diaz is world class, are they? Like,
but I think there's more necessity on Luis Diaz's performance than Ollie Glasner.
But what I think is that really, like, if you look, so Palace at the very start of this season were playing quite decent pressing football. Eze was on fire. Like Odsonne Edouard was on fire as well. Like they started pretty well. They had a really bad. They had a really, really bad period. You know, obviously the feeling around the club became very, very toxic. But
remember
like
that Arsenal game where Mateta was like 60 metres away from everyone.
But Eze and Elise were out for large swathes of that period. Like, and even during that time, they held City to a draw. They probably should have beaten Liverpool. They lost to them, but they were pretty unfortunate to do so. Like there were, I think Hodgson's time had come up. No, not necessarily, but I just think. Like I think Glasner's a really good manager, but I think between someone else other than Glasner could have come in, and had they had a fully fit Elise and Eze and Adam Wharton through the door as well, who I think from his performances at Blackburn it was pretty clear to see that he was ready for the Premier League. I think Palace would probably be in a similar position potentially. Like it's
really? I do think the tactical change up, the switch, the 3-4-3.
Yeah, for sure, is great.
Well,
it's great, but it's not.
But it's in there as well, injured.
Yeah, it's true. But then Gehi could be gone in the summer. Like I just think people are maybe getting a little bit ahead of themselves. I don't think Palace are, have suddenly turned a corner for good. Like I'm just not overly convinced. Like it's been 1 month of incredible form, and because it's the end of the season, people will always put more importance on it. But like
they've been incredible, though. They have been incredible. Like, that turnaround has been monumental.
I think
the mood around the place has been.
The mood's been great. Like, and I do give Glasner credit, but I just think let's see what happens next season. I think. What was I going to say? I was going to have a good closing line for that, but I've forgotten about it. So
another pun.
We'll move
I
on.
think my one's maybe a little bit different. I've gone for Roberto De Zerbi. I think
kick him out when he's down. Eh?
I actually think he's an awesome coach. Like tactically, very, very strong. But I think some of the rhetoric in the media has been a little bit tiring at times. Especially when talking about sort of the higher ups at Brighton who have done just the most fabulous job to get that club into the position that they are currently in. And I understand they've had horrendous injury problems. Probably not talked about enough how bad Brighton's injury problems have been. But, the links to Bayern kind of have persisted over the last 6 months, haven't they? Or at least the last 3 months. And in that time, since February the 24th, they've won 3 games in 15. Like, that is a significant tail off in Brighton's season, and largely that is down to injury. But I also think it has had an impact, the noise surrounding De Zerbi's future. I think if he had 100%, no way, I'm staying here, this is my club for the future, I don't know whether you'd have seen the same tail off for Brighton. In fact, I actually think they've improved a little bit since he seems to have committed again to Brighton in recent weeks. I think 3 wins in 15, yet still being linked to the Bayern job, I think is a little bit surprising for me. But I do think he's an awesome coach, and I do think he will go to a top club in the future.
I think it's partly because Bayern can't find anyone.
He was even when they were even when the news was first announced of Tuchel leaving, he was very much in the mix as one of the top candidates for the role.
But that has waned since, though, hasn't it? And I feel like it does have probably at least a bit to do with Brighton's form. Like, I do feel like that's why I kind of feel like with overrated, underrated, it's difficult. I feel like managers often get a bit overrated when they've just found really good form with their team. Like is anyone calling De Zerbi like Pep's successor at Man City right now? No, but like this time last year, loads of people were. Yeah. So when was he overrated? Was it last year when Brighton were really good and he was being
when
talked
Brighton
about
were going to win Serie A as well?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. There's been a lot. There could be a whole study done actually on the discourse around Brighton on this channel.
The ups and downs.
Underachiever, should we go to next?
Underachiever. Well, one thing I was going to add about De Zerbi, which I actually wrote down yesterday for another show, was they haven't won more than 2 games in a month in the Premier League since September.
It's madness.
It does just slightly sum it up. Having said that, I do think, playing a full Europa League campaign, getting to the knockout stages with about 10 players injured every single week for 6 months, that's really tough to do. So, especially for a club that's not used to it.
Really next season they'll be back. Next season I'm sure they'll be back.
Biggest underachiever, I'm going to get a lot of stick from one fan base who already think that I hate them really randomly, but I'm going for another Liverpool player. I'm going for Dominic Szoboszlai. And it's partly because I really rate him as a player. I've got such high expectations for him. I was really excited for him joining the league. He's the talisman of Hungary. Amazing performances for Leipzig last year when he was fit. Great for Salzburg before that. I just don't think he's been good enough. I think it's 3 goals and 2 assists in the league. And I think he's 5th for chances created in that squad. I think he ranks 5th for shots, but 8th for chances created. Even his defensive work, which everyone says that he's sort of detracted from his more attacking work. I think he's 8th for defensive actions. I think he's only completed 8 more defensive actions than Gravenberch, who's played significantly fewer minutes. I just wanted more from him, and I think he's faded quite spectacularly in the second half of the season. I don't think he's going to be a bad signing overall, but he has underachieved in my eyes. It's going to be interesting,
I think, to see how Arne Slot uses him, because we know he's going to play this 4-2-3-1, and you would expect the deep line 2 probably to be Endo and McAllister, or a deep line midfielder
Get him in the
plus
10
McAllister.
Slot.
In that 10 slot, I'm telling you, I think he's really going to fancy Gakpo. I think it's going to be I think Gakpo is going to be a serious member of Slot's team next year, given that.
I play Szoboszlai there personally, but I suppose it depends where the Salah leaves, because then you could potentially play Szoboszlai on the right.
Yeah,
it is also. I will caveat this in that at Leipzig, he generally played on the right of a 4-2-2-2. He's never played that in that system. He's never really played in a 4-3-3 before, and having to do the sort of shuttling work that those Klopp midfielders have to do. Yeah, maybe he just tired out in the second half of the season, but
he was doing a lot of defensive work, wasn't he, for first half of the season as well. I've actually not gone for a player. I've gone for the most obvious shout of them all. It's just Man United as a team. Probably going to finish on the worst points tally. Are they going to finish on the worst points tally now? Potentially still. May well finish 8th. I don't think there's much.
Because I was looking back at this, I had them third.
Henry Hill had them second.
I think a lot of people had them
back on thing.
But this follows the same. This pretty much follows the same formula, doesn't it? Over the last decade, where United have one high season,
one low season,
finish second or third, and then the season after is just a disaster.
I think this has been the biggest drop-off I can remember, though, realistically.
At least.
I think this has been the biggest drop-off from season to season, aside from obviously the Moyes season when we won the league.
And I think that's
an exceptional
be the final huge drop-off.
That is exacerbated, though, by the injuries, I think. That is exacerbated by the injuries.
For sure. The injuries have played a big part, but I think you can still have, you can still be ravaged by injuries and not concede 84 goals in all competitions.
That is
truly horrendous, especially when, United didn't even make it through the group stage. United haven't even been in Europe since November, December, and yet they've still conceded that many goals in all competitions.
It does seem a long time ago, that Champions League campaign.
Champions League campaign was awful, exacerbated by the fact that the big money goalkeeper signing made a ton of mistakes. He's obviously, Onana, weirdly, United would be in a much worse position without him in the league, but the Mount signing, obviously injuries, but that has so far proved a bad use of resources. I think given that United did not spend an insignificant amount of money last year, having finished third and with the League Cup and having made the FA Cup final, to finish potentially 8th and just have an FA Cup final to show for it, and an FA Cup final where they will probably lose, let's face it, I think is I can't really think of a bigger underachievement this year. However, Eric's speech on Wednesday night did give me hope about the FA Cup final. I'm not counting them out just yet.
Pre-filming, it was giving them chills.
I was giving them chills.
I think it has to be Man United. It has to be Man United. I also think, Marcus Rashford, probably one of the saddest endings to the season that we saw midweek. That argument with the fan, it's just not how you want it to kind of wrap up, is it? This is a player who scored 30 goals in all competitions last season for Manchester United. This season he's got 8. I was expecting him to go to massive heights, and I still think he could do that at Manchester United, but it feels a little bit like that relationship has fractured this season, which is just so sad to see, because this is an academy player that, if he'd continued on the trajectory we saw last season, could have gone on to break Wayne Rooney's goal-scoring record at Manchester United. Are we going to see that next season? Fingers crossed, but I didn't see this happening after the output of last season.
What I would say about United is, if you get the appointments that everyone knows at boardroom level and just below that as well, it does feel like this will be the last real seesaw. I'm not saying that you'll challenge in 3-4 years' time. I'm not saying anything like that, but surely the good season, tragic season, that will end once the decision-making higher above is better.
Fingers crossed.
You'd hope so.
Best newcomer? I've gone for Areola.
Nice.
I went for Mikey's favourite, Ollie Glasner.
I went for Adam Wharton, actually. I kept it Palace. Yeah.
I just think, Areola, club record points, club record wins, club fewest defeats record, best season of Solanke's career. Like you said, adapting players into new roles that weren't there before, playing with, no offence to Neto, who's been a good servant, but, 35-year-old goalkeeper all season. I think remarkable.
I'm actually going to cede. I think it should be Areola. That was an oversight.
Yeah, I think
Adam Wharton's a better shout than Glasner.
I think it's a good shout, Adam Wharton.
I know, because he's been more important to Palace's success. He has only been there half season. It counts against him, but I just think, again, I'm slightly going against myself here, because he was so good at Blackburn that, even before he played a game for Palace, he looked like a really, really top signing. But to have dominated in a game against Liverpool, who were in great form going into that match, just to have exceeded I think expectations of a lot of people, to have also come into a Palace midfield that was hurting from the injury to Cheikh Doucouré as well, and to be able to step up in his absence. Now you look at that midfield and it's like, well, will Cheikh Doucouré actually automatically get back in there? He may well do, alongside Wharton, because Wharton can then play a more expansive role, which will be great. But nevertheless, I think he's just been absolutely superb. I think we need
to give a major hat tip again to Dougie Freedman, who has just done a remarkable recruitment job at Crystal Palace. You look at some of the young talent he signed out of the second division: Eze, Elise, Adam Wharton. The players he signed, like Cheikh Doucouré, like Joachim Anderson out of the French league. I
think also it's not even just the recruitment. Man. It's not even just the recruitment; it's the ability to retain talent as well.
Yeah,
I do agree.
I know they could have got big money for Zaha a few years ago, but they really needed him a few years ago.
He's one of their club's greatest ever players.
And to the ability to keep Elise on for that extra year last summer, I thought was really remarkable. I think everyone expected him to leave, didn't they? What was it? Chelsea who triggered that release clause.
What are you teeing up over there?
No, I do agree with you. I just feel like it's great saying that after 5 wins and 6. Palace have.
This is what I'm saying about Glasner.
40 and 50 points, I think, for the last something like 7 seasons.
I would agree, but that's not necessarily Dougie.
I don't think it necessarily means he's doing a bad job.
It's not Dougie Freedman's fault. He's working in a constricted budget, and the output he's getting from that constricted budget is remarkable. They spend absolutely
There's
nothing
been
every
very
year,
few
Palace.
misses. There's been very few misses, but I think it is just like he's flavour of the month. Same with Glasner.
I think he's flavour of the month because he's done such a good job. Like there's a reason that he's going to take over or likely to take over as Newcastle sporting
director. As Mike was
saying
this time last year about De Zerbi, like we were all saying that he was the next Messiah, myself included.
I know, but we've been seeing this from Dougie Freedman for what, like 5 years now, 6 years.
I know. I just
working with zero money and just signing players that immediately have massive upside, either in the market or on the pitch for Crystal Palace.
I think he has done a good job. I'm not doubting that he's done a good job.
It's also particularly hard at Palace over the last 2 years, where the ownership structure has become so much more fragmented, and the thinking clearly has been a bit more fragmented
and
as well.
It's one signing a summer.
He's going to Newcastle anyway, isn't he? So
we'll see what happens next.
Next up, we've got biggest surprise. I've gone for JP Mateta.
Nice.
Who I just didn't see coming, man. I just didn't see it coming. I think we pretty much all thought he might well move on from Crystal Palace this summer. And it looks like he might well move on to a massive club now. You know, this morning's reports that PSG are extremely interested, that Napoli are interested in him. I mean, they've just come out of the blue, haven't they? But it's now 13 goals this season for Crystal Palace. He's still only 26 years old. And under Ole Glasner, I don't know what's happened, is it 9 and 11, something like that? He scored more goals under Ole Glasner in 10 games than he did in 100 appearances under Vieira and Hodgson.
I'd be worried about him going to a Champions League club this summer. It feels like you've got to see this for longer than 12, 15 games. I think PSG, look at how Gonzalo Ramos has struggled there up until the final 2 months and how good he was at Benfica last year. Like Hugo Ekitike could barely get a game, and he'd been excellent for Reims the year before. But
this
Napoli
is the Crystal Palace Player of the Year, mate.
I still think it should have gone to Elise, personally.
If PSG put 100 million euros down on the table, then Palace have got to take it.
Parish might say yes. I think he's just been amazing, though. So
I think it's a good shout.
Didn't see it coming.
I went with surprise. I look back on my predictions in the terms of the table. I had Wolves going down.
So did I.
I really did. And Wolves would be my surprise package. I just thought with the quality they lost last summer and experience as well in Jimenez, Cody, Coutinho, Lopetegui, Neves, Nunes, the list was endless. They didn't spend that much money. Their only marquee signing was Cunha, and then Bellegarde's come in, done a good job. Traore's done a good job. Wenyo's done a good job. All really underrated signings, and they're comfortable in mid-table. I think they've already got 6 more points than they did last year, and they've got the game away at Anfield today.
I'm interested. Did you make that prediction before they hired your
Gary
previous
O'Neill,
manager of the year, Gary O'Neill?
Yeah, I think I did. I think I did because Gary O'Neill came in 3 days before, maybe 4 days before. It was around the same time. But I remember being worried because I was like, everyone's going to think I'm such an idiot because Gary O'Neill's not going to look good. And fair play, he's done even better at that job.
Manager.
He's done exceptionally well. And fair play to them.
Yeah,
just proves this bald idiot.
Yeah, brilliant.
I've gone for a fairly easy one. Cole Palmer. I don't think I was as down on the Cole Palmer transfer as a lot of people, but it was pretty mad when Cole Palmer was signed by Chelsea. How many? Well, I mean, even Chelsea themselves, he wasn't first choice, was he? I think it was Elise initially who they wanted, to tie it back to our previous conversation. But that £40 million fee was really being laughed at by a lot of people,
rushed, didn't it?
And also and maybe it was a lot for a player with 0 Premier League experience, but the way that he stepped up in that team has been remarkable. I mean, you guys spoke about it before, but I think he has been the sheer output is surprising.
Well.
Second top scorer in the league. I know he's almost scored the record number of penalties in a Premier League season, but to step up in big games as well, and also like you were alluding to earlier, step up at Stamford Bridge where the atmosphere has been really toxic at points this season, as it always is when Chelsea underperform, at least for a prolonged period of time, and he's got his reward now, I think, because he's now playing in a team which is getting more consistent results. And I think going into the summer, I think there's a lot less pressure on the manager as well, and I back Pochettino
100%.
to get a more consistent tune out of that Chelsea team next season.
I think in many ways you always remember, at least I do, I remember seasons by a couple of players, and I think this year people remember it's almost Cole Palmer season. him and Ollie Watkins, I think they'll be the two players that really stand out to me to remember this season.
Yeah. Biggest redemption arc.
Super Kai.
Yeah, it's got to be Kai, hasn't it?
Oh,
Man?
yeah. I didn't
Kai.
think about Kai.
Unbelievable.
I didn't think about him.
Again,
yeah,
I think I questioned the
really
signing. I
shout.
think we all questioned the signing.
Yeah.
Where was he going to fit? What was he going to bring?
Do you
He'd
think-
come off a real low at Chelsea?
Do you think this was intentional or they stumbled across it? Because I think it was
wasn't
pretty
too late in the window, was it?
No, but I mean him playing as the 9, because the redemption has really started with him playing as the 9. He was originally cast as this left-sided central midfield role that would offer cover and replacement for Granit Xhaka, Declan Rice in the 6, and then Ødegaard as well was another floating 8. Him as this sort of late midfield box crasher was the original pitch.
Yeah.
What we've seen him at when we've seen him at his absolute best has been as effectively what he was doing at Chelsea as this false 9 who can hold the ball up, has excellent individual play in and around the box and ability to play other players in, but his goal numbers just spike because, quite frankly, he's in a better team.
He's in a better team.
Yeah,
that's literally it. But I think in that sense,
but do you think they intended him to be the 9?
Not necessarily, but I think that's in some ways that's more credit to him,
Yeah.
because Arteta.
I agree.
Arteta kind of got it wrong, but actually, I think what obviously we don't know what goes on, but what clubs how they analyse players, but I think when Havertz was playing as a 9 at Chelsea, I think he was criminally underrated. Like I think Chelsea fans used to be on him all the time because of his lack of goal output. But the reality was, whenever he did play as a 9 at Chelsea, I think he was all round probably their best option in that position at the time, and was one of their 2 or 3 best players in the final third. Clearly, whatever the initial role for him at Arsenal, that was carved out for him didn't work too well. But yeah, I think it's credit to him that when he was called upon to play as a 9, he passed that with flying colours.
Particularly in the last couple of months as well.
Absolutely.
The return.
Even
Goal versus
in
Spurs,
14
2 versus Chelsea.
14 goal involvements in the last 17 games.
Even in that kind of November period though, where they were, Arsenal was still not really firing on all cylinders, and he had the last minute winner against Brentford, who I think
Luton as well,
Luton, which I think Declan Rice scored in that game as well. Havertz has been great.
Who are you going for?
I was umming and ahhing between Ross Barkley and Chris Wood.
Barkley's such a good shout.
Barkley's big redemption arc. Obviously, Luton down now, so I feel like his name's been out of it, and obviously he hasn't. He's not going to make the Euro squad either, due to the sheer competition for places.
Yeah.
But Ross Barkley has been great. The reason why I didn't go for Ross Barkley was because he already has had a redemption in the last few years. And then dropped off again. He had that redemption at Villa. Yeah, that was it.
That was more like a 3-4 games.
Not this level though.
Not this level. He has been one of the best midfielders in the league.
People are talking about him going to the Euro. It's not going to happen. But
I did think people got a little bit carried away.
Yeah, a little bit carried
away on this, but he was great.
He has been great. The one I've actually gone for is Chris Wood. Chris Wood, 12 goals this season. That's more than he's managed in the last 2 seasons combined.
He has scored 10 plus goals in 5 seasons of Premier League football.
He has, but the two before this, it felt like he was going to drop off. And this season, his underlying numbers are actually around the same level as Ollie Watkins, amazingly. Also, 0.66 XG and expected assists per 90, not to be sniffed at. But I think crucially with Chris Wood, he could barely get a game before Christmas. He only had 4 starts before Christmas. And then since Christmas, he started every single game that he's been available for. 12 goals, got that hat-trick against Newcastle on Boxing Day.
That must have been a satisfying one.
Scored in both their 1-1 draws with Luton and Palace. Scored in the 3-1 win over Fulham. Scored a brace in their 2-2 draw with Luton earlier in the season. He's made such a decisive impact to the point where, Forest are down without him. They're genuinely down without him.
Nuno's job at Forest? 3 wins in 17.
Yeah, it's not great.
I don't think I expected that much else, though. Yeah. I don't know whether it was necessarily the most exciting managerial appointment. I think it was just like a bit of a sticking plaster, get you to the end of the season. I don't think he'll lose his job.
I just don't think Steve Cooper should have been let go. I'm still yet to hear a good reason why.
Plus,
Why
I kind of feel sorry for any manager at Nottingham Forest, to be honest. I don't think the ideas of that club, I'll just say, are necessarily the right ones.
Okay, let's go to aged like fine wine.
I thought this was a tap-in.
Yeah, KDB?
Oh, nice one. Could have done.
Good,
I went with Van
yeah.
Dijk. Again, I mean, we've just named two of the best players in the Premier League in the last 7 years, but best tackle success rate in the league, best aerial duel win rate, everyone injured behind him, everyone injured alongside him, new midfield in front. I think Van Dijk,
yeah, he's been amazing.
He was amazing up until the final 4 weeks probably, but even still then, amazing season.
That's such a good shout.
Yeah.
The reason I've gone for KDB is just the output in the limited minutes. What is it, 10 assists in 1,000 minutes? I think he's far and away, when you look at sort of shot creating actions and expected assists, I think Cara put a graph out on his Twitter, didn't he? And it's like every other player in the Premier League, and then KDB 10 times the output. It's
he
just
also carried City through that bit where they weren't playing that well.
I just think back to that
when he first came back.
I just think back to that return game against Newcastle at St James's Park, when he picked out the pass to Oscar Bob, and then prior to that slotted that ball through the legs of Fabian Schär into the bottom corner, and it was just sort of that moment. It's like, oh my god, here we go again. So even though he's been injured at 32, it's just like purring, isn't he? I'm kind of hopeful City don't let him go from a Premier League perspective in the summer, because there is a bit of chat, isn't there, starting to develop that the transfer could be kind of talked about in the summer, which I was not expecting to hear.
I've also gone for a 32-year-old. I was very close to picking Van Dijk, but I just thought, I don't know.
It's quite predictable.
Yeah, I went for Pascal Gross. Speaking of 10 assists and 4 goals from deep lying midfield. In, like we say, like a struggling Brighton side.
Their best player, isn't he?
He's been brilliant, and he's got at least 10 goal involvements in 3 of the last 4 seasons for Brighton. He's been there since they were promoted in 2017. He's been in the Premier League for 7 seasons now.
He's amazing.
It feels like in 10 years' time, like watching back Premier League years, he's going to be one of those players who will. He's one of those players who will crop up in Premier League nostalgia conversations in years to come. Sure. Like people will remember him. Like the amount of positions he's had to play over the years. He was always Brighton's chief creator, and then was able to fill in at right back and left back for a couple of seasons, and performed brilliantly there. But this year he's just become everything to Brighton again, like he was 7 years ago. I think that feels like an aged like fine wine player to me, in a similar way to I guess KDB and Van Dijk.
Agreed. Glad it didn't happen award. I've gone for the quadruple.
Yeah, same.
Just that would have just been utterly insufferable, wouldn't it? And the fact they've ended the season with 1 trophy is pretty glorious in my book.
Yeah, very, very fan based, very fan channel answer from both of us there. Yeah. Do you have anything more?
I don't have anything.
Objective?
Yeah, no, nothing to dig at Newcastle for. I went with. I'm glad that Mark Clattenburg didn't make the end of the season with Nottingham Forest. I thought that was one of the most embarrassing episodes of recent Premier League memory.
That was such a good answer.
I'm glad he took himself away, because that was an absolute joke.
It was, yeah. And to be fair, we have got a lot of hate on this channel from Nottingham Forest fans, thinking that we're being paid to.
Everyone thinks anyone who works for Sky is like part of this agenda to try and fix the Premier League against their team.
It's very funny, but I do think the reaction to the Clattenburg Nottingham Forest thing was a bit weird, because a lot of people online and creators online were like, oh well, I do agree with Forest that the referees that the standard refereeing is bad. It was like, well, no, but Nottingham Forest didn't argue that. Nottingham Forest argued that there's a conspiracy. Yeah. Like that's very different. I don't think they really spoke about the standard refereeing. Wolves have argued about the standard of refereeing and VAR with their thing.
Correct channels.
Well, maybe they'll make change. That's to be said. But
there might be
what Wolves have done is like, oh yeah, I very much see the argument. Like, I don't see like people were far too kind on Forest for that. Like it was. I think what it was that lots of Premier League fans have been angry this season, and they just wanted to see someone take a pop, and Forest did. But I don't think people really got the full. Or really stopped to think exactly what the implications of what Forest were saying.
I agree.
Anyway,
best prediction. I had Bournemouth 11th.
Nice,
my best one. And they are currently 11th, but they might finish a little bit.
That's good. Mine's also Bournemouth. I put them as biggest overachievers. I backed Dominic Solanke and Semenyo to have big seasons. Bournemouth as well.
Nice. I took a lot of flack saying that Villa would finish above Chelsea. I also said, which I have mentioned before,
Really good,
that Brighton
good.
hadn't got their midfield recruitment right. And I remember quite a few Brighton podcasters, who will remain nameless, saying it's funny when people try and get involved with clubs they don't watch.
I love it.
No,
Not
no
like
saltiness.
Not like
in
I've
that
remembered at all.
statement
Yeah.
I love it.
Got their photos on my wall and my darts board ready.
Worst prediction, I had Spurs 9th.
Oh god, I've got ages.
Post
Have you got
Kane
it?
world,
Yeah.
I just thought this could get really ugly. Like, it was so toxic at the end of last season, and then Kane left very close towards the start of this season. I thought they haven't got enough time to recover. They haven't signed a replacement. Like, I rate Ange, but he's got an insane job to do here. I could see them dropping off even more. 9th, and they've ended up probably 5th, maybe 6th.
Yeah. I think I also remember saying that the 8th would be a really good season for Spurs. I think a lot of us underrated them. George Wright said they'd finish 5th, didn't he? So fair play
He's
to him,
weirdly
Arsenal
confident.
fan as well. Mine's also Spurs based. On that infamous team talk at the start of the season, I did panic because I just couldn't think of anyone, and I did put James Maddison down as the flop signing. But was it the worst prediction, or was it actually the best prediction? Vote in the comments below.
It was bold.
Because it was bold, and he did have an amazing start to the year. He was, one of the players of, one of the best players in the league until he got that injury. But since he's come back, it's not been so good. So could prove to be a flop in the long term.
Dukes.
Mine is, I think, obviously the public one is that Liverpool not guaranteed to finish top 4. That was in the heat of
That
the
was on
argument.
Team Talk, wasn't
Although
it?
the
Yeah.
reasoning
I
for
think
that
that was me winding you up.
The
Team
reasoning
Talk,
for that was
Team
quite
Talk
sad.
does get a lot
Well,
of
Team Talk, when
bad
you've got 5
takes
people
out.
shouting at you, you often come out with just
Yeah.
stupid
Yeah.
statements.
That was
and
you have about
definitely
30
winding
seconds
you
to
up.
come up with something.
struggling to come up with something.
I was winding you up, and then I think you came out.
Yeah,
of that.
and it was a good clip anyway. But yeah, I did say that their defence wasn't good enough and wouldn't guarantee them top 4. That was wrong. I think my worst one though, which was on my predictions, was Burnley to finish 15th.
Yeah, I had Burnley.
Burnley,
high. I had 13th.
Yeah.
Wow, that is bold.
I'd obviously
That is
just
bold.
not really factored in all the loanees there last year. I just thought they wouldn't struggle as much as they have.
I think also all of us potentially had Borussia Dortmund bottom of the group of death
Yeah,
in
we
Champions
did.
League.
We did.
I had Newcastle.
Oh yeah, you had Newcastle.
Did you
Fair
have
play.
Dortmund qualify?
No, you had them
No,
third.
I
I
had
think.
Milan
I
second.
don't think anyone
Yeah.
had them
Which
getting
is
through.
now looking extremely ugly as they enter a Champions League final.
That'll be screenshotted.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Okay, those were our reactions and awards. Let us know what you thought of them in the comments below, and let us know who you think should win those awards. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. We'll see you later. Bye. everyone.
Bye.